to our Friday morning meeting, last day of the session, the workshop. And with that, I would like to have our counterpart pull roll call. Mike, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to do a roll call. Larry Super.
Here.
Kellen Lancaster.
Here.
Mike Purcell, here. Gerald Geis, here. Clinton Glick.
Here.
Ron Cayley. Mark Cott.
Here.
Sheridan Little.
Here.
Rodney Wagner.
Here.
Bill Yankee.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll start with audience introductions. We'll start with our,
He wants to do it.
oh, that's right. Yeah, we need a roll call over there.
Senator Agai.
Excuse.
Senator Anselmi Dalton.
Excuse.
Senator Dockstader.
Excuse.
Senator Driscoll. Present. Senator Moniz.
Here.
Representative Blake.
Here.
Representative Eklund.
Here.
Representative Hunt.
Excused.
Representative Paxton.
Excused.
Representative Simpson.
Excused.
Vice Chairman Larson.
Here.
Chairman Excused.
Here.
Different list.
Have a quorum too. Anyway, we'll start out with the audience introduction over at the end of the table.
Andrew Coleman with the Attorney General's Office.
Ogden Driscoll, Senate District 1.
Dan Larson, House District 25, Powell.
Larry Hicks, Senate District 11.
John Eklund, House District 10.
Rod Wagner, Wyoming Water Development District 1.
Bill Yankee, Wyoming Water Development Commission, Division 3.
Mark Cott, Water District 4.
Kellen Lancaster, Water Commission, District 4, Western Wyoming.
Mike Purcell, I'm the at-large member of the commission.
Larry Suker, representing District 2.
Gerald Geis, District 3.
Sheridan Little, Wyoming Water Development Commission, Water Division 2.
Glick, Wyoming Water Development Commission, Wind River.
Glenn Moniz, Senate District 10.
Stan Blake, House District 39, Sweetwater County.
Katie Talbot, Water Development Office.
Josh Anderson, LSO.
Brandon Gebhardt, Water Development Office.
Jason Mead, Water Development Office.
Ryan Clerkin, Water Development Office.
Doug Thompson, Land or Enterprise Ditch.
Barry Lawrence, Water Development Office. Bob Davis, Little Snake River Conservancy District. Richard Russell, Bighorn Canal Irrigation District.
Joe Wildman, Bighorn Canal Irrigation District.
Jody Green, Water Development Office.
Greg Kerr, UW Office of Water Programs.
Bill Hahn, Highland, Hanover Irrigation.
Lee Arrington, Wheatland Irrigation District.
Roland Gardner, Dry Creek Irrigation District.
Robert Hood, Sunrise Engineering. Kelly Johnson, Cottonwood Irrigation District.
Phil Georgiel, Trail Irrigation District.
Paul Rudeman, Laparelle Irrigation.
Kevin Carrico, Laramie Valley Municipal Irrigation District.
David Spicer, Laramie Valley Municipal Irrigation District.
John Mader, Laramie Valley Municipal Irrigation District.
Jerry Dark, Beaver Irrigation District. Sully Bridges, Paramount Engineering, representing Sidon Irrigation District.
Ed Burton, Wheaton Valley Irrigation District.
Don Kyle, Kirby Irrigation District. Gene Skelton, Owl Creek Irrigation District.
Okay, thank you. Due to some information we received this morning and yesterday, we feel it best as a commission to go into an executive session this morning with some of our legal counsel. So due to that fact, I would entertain a motion, and I think what we'll do is we will leave the room here. We won't be long, I don't think. Depends on, but
I'll move that we go in executive session.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Geis, seconded by Commissioner Little. To go into executive session, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Katie's over there.
Mr. Chairman, we need
some of the information we received, the documents, and I guess we could name these documents.
Legal advice, I believe.
Legal advice?
Right, Jerry?
Yes.
Yeah.
The motion.
All right, so we'll disappear for a moment. Hopefully we'll be right back. Thank you.
You probably put that
Where are we going?
entertain a motion to come back into regular session.
I'd move that we resolve ourselves out of executive session.
I second.
Moved by Commissioner Geis. Second by Lancaster. Commissioner Lancaster, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carried. Next order of business, looks like we're going to call on our chief executive here for the next amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's okay, I would like to request that we talk a little bit out of order on these projects. The reason is I'd like to talk about the recommendation under C3 for the transfer of funds from Buffalo Bill Reservoir account. This has implications on a couple other recommendations on a couple of other projects that we'll be talking about later. So I'd like to bring that to the front and get it out of the way if that's okay. This is under tab C3.
Last tab.
Let's tab in the red.
Last tab.
This was discussed, I believe, in the August meeting. The request is to transfer funds from the Buffalo Bill Reservoir account in the amount of $7 million into not account 1, but into account 2 to help us fund some of the projects that we've got applications for.
Need a motion on that? Say, I would call for one.
Chairman, I move that we give you the power you need to request this transfer of funds from the Buffalo Bill account to Water Development.
Moved by Commissioner Lancaster, seconded by Commissioner Geis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, we'll go back to the original order under tab L2. This is, and I would say, sponsors, if you would like, when I announce your project name, if you just want to come up and be ready to have a little discussion and answer any questions or provide any thoughts, please come up as I announce your project. First project is the Bighorn Canal Irrigation District Wasteway Check Replacement 2020. Good morning. The proposed budget, $1,660,000. This is a 67% grant and a 33% loan at 4% interest for 30 years. This was a priority project that was identified in the 2013 Level 2 study, and it is for the replacement of the Alamo Wasteway check structure. And I would offer your table.
Sure. My name's Richard Russell, and I'm the president of the Bighorn Canal Irrigation District. We appreciate you guys having us down here and able to come forward and talk to you. We are an irrigation district that starts in Washoe County and ends up in Bighorn County. We've got about 24,000 acres in our district that's irrigated. We raise crops as sugar beet, malt, barley, alfalfa seed, edible dry beans, pasture, cattle. It is it's a lifeblood to the Bighorn Basin. The Bighorn Canal is, in my opinion. We've done a lot of good things in the past. You guys have helped us out with a lot of our structures, and there's still a lot of work to be done. In our Level 2 study, we had a whole lot of stuff that was identified. The Alamo project was one of them that had been identified. We'd been working to get to there. We'd been working through some other projects. That did fail 2 years ago, and we just had to completely, we just dammed it off, the wasteway side of it. It is non-functional right now. We've been very fortunate the last couple years. There's about a 15 to 20 mile section of our canal that doesn't have, between wasteways now that we've got, that's kind of right in the middle of where we are. And we've been very fortunate that we haven't had any major storm events in that section, that we've had emergency releases of water there. It also doesn't allow us the ability to store some water there and some spillage for downstream. We have had a couple instances where we've had to run it over, unfortunately. Didn't cause any serious damage, but we got lucky. And I don't want to bank our future on luck. So, like I said, we do appreciate all the help you've given us and the consideration that we've had in the past. And I guess if you've got any questions for me, ask away.
Yes, Senate Commissioner Lancaster?
So it says that you're charging, your assessment is $16.50 an acre.
Yes, it is.
Do you project that, it shows that that's going to continue even after this? Do you feel like?
We hope that we can keep it there. That's the general plan. We've been fairly aggressive on paying down some of our other projects that we've got. We've got a couple projects that we think that we can get to come off our books in time. And the reason we've been able to do that is we've been fortunate that we haven't had to buy any stored water out of Boyson, where we do have a long-term contract with the Bureau. And instead of, we've taken that money and paid down some of our debt load. So we're under the opinion that we think we can keep our assessment where it is with this project too.
As follow-up, as a commission, we continue to see that the cost of building and repairing and construction goes up and up.
Yes.
And we are trying to look futuristic, so we hope that it'll be in your meetings that it can't remain $16.50 forever.
And yes, and we talk about that a lot. The one thing that we haven't been aggressive in the last couple years. We have raised assessments. I've been on the board this is my 11th year, and our assessments have raised from $10 when I got on the board to $16.50 now. So we have raised them some. We've left them flat for the last 3-4 years just because of the current farm economy, and we didn't want to tax our subscribers any worse than they already were. Everybody in the room knows that the current agricultural economy in the state and the nation isn't the greatest thing right now. So we've helped to we've pared down some expenses, and we've tried to run as tight a ship as we can in order to keep those expenses where we are. But yes, we definitely know that and have talked about that and had that conversation, that we know that assessments to stay where they are is not possible.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for the sponsor by the commission? Anybody on the floor? With that said, thank you, Richard.
Thank you, guys.
Chairman, the next project under tab M2, Cottonwood Irrigation District Transmission Pipeline Project. This proposed budget is $1,540,000, and that is a 67% grant in the amount of $31,800 and a 33% loan at 4% for a term of 40 years. This project is to replace approximately 6,200 linear feet of pipeline and some laterals. This project was identified in a 2017 master plan. At that time, it was a lower priority, but recent observations have increased the priority of these projects.
Kelly Johnson, the president of the Cottonwood Irrigation District. We thank you for your consideration in helping us fund this project and your past support. This is our main trunk line coming out of the canyon, and we've had some leaks in that. It is a steel pipeline that's rusting out, and we've changed the priority because If we have to shut this line down to repair it, you have to shut the whole system off. So that's why we've changed the priority of this line. So we're a district of 5,500 acres, and that is the main line that supplies all of the laterals with water. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer.
This little canal over there that runs uphill back towards that junction up there anyway. It looks like it's running uphill all the time.
Oh, no, that's not it. No, we're all downhill.
Well, I know that one's downhill, but it looks like it's running uphill.
No, everything we have is a pipeline. It comes out of Cottonwood Canyon, and I think there's about 1,000-foot difference from the top of the pipeline to the lower end of the pipeline.
One concern that I have, I guess, is looking at in your financials is your emergency fund. There isn't any within the district, is that correct, or am I looking in the wrong spot?
You mean as far as money in the bank?
Yeah.
No, I believe we have over $200,000 in a reserve fund. We were told we had to have at least 2 years of operating expenses,
That's good, then.
and so we do have that.
If you have that, I might have just missed, I was looking in your financial statement. You may have it somewhere else here.
It's
Okay,
in the repair
I
and
see that,
replacement fund.
200,000, thank you. I didn't catch your name earlier,
Clay Johnson.
Kelly. Any other concerns or questions that our commission has to Kelly, our sponsor?
Commissioner,
Yes, Kellen?
if you've never been to Cottonwood Canyon, put it on your bucket list. There's a lake up there, 7 miles. It's a pretty place. Hardworking people, good, honest people at the end of the... They're not very big fish, sorry. In fact, there's no fish, are there, Kelly?
I'm not a fisherman, Kellen.
There might be bullheads in there, raking them anywhere. With that, is there any other comments from the crowd, from anybody? Kelly, thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Next project is the Deaver Irrigation District Franny Canal Drop Chute Number 1, 2020. This is a materials-only request. The amount for the material-only request is $166,200, and then the sponsor share would equal the 33%. Or actually, yeah, I didn't do the math, but it's approximately that. This project is to replace the Franny Canal Drop Chute Number 1. It's a 100-year-old structure, and this structure carries the entire district's water supply for the system. And this project is, like I said, the materials-only grant to replace the structure.
Thank you. My name is Jerry Dart. I'm the manager of the Deaver Irrigation District. Just a little quick history on this particular project. We are at the tail end of the Shoshone Irrigation Project. Shoshone Irrigation District gets its water through the Corbett Tunnel, goes through their district, then it comes to us in an area called Coal Mine Hill, which divides Powell and our basin. At the top of Coal Mine Hill begins drastic drops in elevation. In fact, our district drops about 400 feet in elevation from the top to the bottom. One of the original designs of this was to have tunnels, and we do have other tunnels that do this, but this particular drop chute drops 17 feet in about 150 feet of distance. So the scouring effect is pretty harsh. This particular drop structure just is a classic example of deteriorating infrastructure. The pictures don't do it any justice. It was cobblestone rocked and mortared and put together, and over the last 100 years, the original design plans are from 1915. The original design plans just showed that the footers were poured as concrete. They literally laid them by hand. And over the years, our district has literally just patched upon patched upon patched. And these patches are, it's just like in a water park, and it's causing its own effects, and it's eventually going to fail. If this particular structure were to fail, we would literally have to shut down the Franny Canal portion of the Shoshone Irrigation District in order for us to get a handle on it, get it under control. So it would not just adversely affect our district, it would adversely Shoshone's as well. It has surpassed its useful life, and we are in the process of engineering with a geotech to see how deep the sandstone is in order for us to either go through an option of building another drop check or an in-kind chute. We're looking at a baffled chute designed to slow the water down. There's a reason why 100 years ago they built this structure the way that they did, and it wasn't just because they were doing it with shovels and picks and blasting powder and horses and so on and so forth. It's on a rock shelf. And it was easy for them to just put this chute in, get it down that 17 feet, get it out, and then go on from there type of thing. Well, our technology has changed, but we don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. We just need to get this water down 17 feet. If we get it down there too fast, it could potentially wash the canal out, make it to the highway. So we want to slow this water down. So we got a couple of design ideas in place. Some which would save the district money in terms of having to mobilize cranes, pump trucks, etc. And of course, we're paying for the engineering and the construction end of this. So any consideration you'd give for us, this is a big project for us. Our engineers have not worked on huge projects like this for us. They have built large drops, but we're looking at a chute that might just slow this water down and slow down the deterioration. It would increase the life of the in-kind type of chute that we might want to build. We really appreciate everything you've done for us in the past. You've made our district better, and we're little projects like this moving along one by one will hopefully be at a point where we can walk away and sleep well at night, but we can't do it without your help. So thank you very much.
I have one question. Jerry, do you have the ability, the manpower to do the work within the district, or will there be subcontracts that you will use or subcontractors to install this material, I guess?
Yeah, we keep our crew on throughout the winter. We're detritus in the summer, we're carpenters and concrete guys in the winter. We have our own equipment. The only thing that we would be subbing out would be, it's not even the correct term, subbing out. We would have to hire pump trucks to come in, and if we went with the reinforced concrete pipe design, which was in our level 1 design, if we went with that design, we would have to hire a crane. And those types of things we would have to hire out. But as far as the labor end of these things, no, it's our intention to use our own work crew, and if I have to hire more people to get us through this and get it done before water, that's what we'll do.
Thank you. Senator Hicks had a question?
Mr. Chairman, and refresh me, but this is, you guys pick up where the Shoshone irrigation stops, right? And then it transitions at Coal Mine Hill. Isn't there a hydropower unit on the Shoshone side on the same canal?
Actually, no, but, well, let me rephrase that. Once the Garland Canal leaves the Corbett Tunnel, and it gets to Ralston, Wyoming, just on the other side of Ralston, Wyoming, that's where the Shoshone Power Shoshone Power Plant is. Then on the being northeast of Ralston, it splits. It's the Garland Canal, then it becomes the Franny Canal, then the Franny Canal goes to Coal Mine Hill. They wouldn't necessarily have to shut down the Garland side of it, but overall they would have to reduce their water throughout the whole system. Yes, and potentially slow down their power generation.
Mr. Chairman, the question I have is given the drop here, did you guys look at the possibility of installing and using that hydraulic head for a power unit? Is that something you guys have looked at in the past?
We have looked at it, and we have entered into an MOA agreement with some individuals that have looked very carefully at that. I'm saving the best locations for later. The reality is, they all walked up there, looked at that with me, and said that 15 to 17-foot head pressure is not worth their investment.
Okay.
They're looking at our larger ones, and believe me, this is not as big a drop as we've got, but this is our biggest one, and carries our entire water supply. So,
Thank you,
yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Any other? Yes, Senator?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if I have a real big question. One of the big issues is if you did have to shut down, a third of the water going through that power plant is kind of Franny's, I think, Franny Devers. And so they may be in trouble in producing the power they had contracted for, and so they may be in trouble, I would guess.
Absolutely, yes.
Any other questions pertaining to this project to our sponsor? If not, thank you, Jerry,
Thank you.
and good luck with it.
Next project under N3, the Dry Creek Irrigation District Transmission Pipeline Replacement Project. As you will remember in the workshop, this was one of the projects we talked about. The recommendation was a do not fund unless we got the Buffalo Bill transfer. That's why we moved that item up this morning. So the recommendation is with that transfer, the recommendation is to fund the project. And the request is for a 67% grant and a 33% loan at 4% interest for 20 years for a total project of $1,340,000. This project is to replace 6,300 feet of pipe for the LS2 pipe and 2,000 linear feet for the LN2B pipe. This is the third phase of the district's rehab project.
I want to thank everybody for letting us come today. My name is Roland Gardner, president of Dry Creek Irrigation. The system's been in the ground about 50 years, 48 years to be exact, and our steel pipe is just corroding. And so, like he said, this is our third phase that we're working on. And we've started trying to replace those areas we're having the most problem with. And this will be our third phase. And we appreciate the support you guys have given us and appreciate any consideration for this one. And even especially the fact that you're recommending to transfer this fund, so we appreciate that. Any questions for me? You know, as I kind of looked through these things, when we started this process, we dramatically raised our assessment. We went from collecting about $39,000 a year to about $120,000 a year. So we've stepped up, and with your help, we appreciate that. We've also gone after other funds from the NRCS and other federal agencies, some with some success and a lot of frustration trying to get through all those processes. But
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. It really sucks when they're replacing pipe that's younger than you.
Roland and I were 5 years old when they put that pipe in. We're old too.
Any other questions for our sponsor? Anybody select or anybody on the floor? If not, Roland, thank you. Good luck on her.
thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Get on the ground.
Mr. Chairman, the next project is under tab 03. This is the Eden Valley Irrigation Drainage District Parson Lateral 2020. This is the same circumstances as the project we just heard with the do not fund and unless the Buffalo Bill transfer and the legislature approval of that transfer, of course. But so this project is for a 60% grant request in the amount of $2,262,200. The 40% match is at least in part with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation salinity control funds. And the project is converting 6,100 feet of irrigation canal into HDPE pipe. This section of the canal accounts for 37% of the water loss, I believe, in the district. Is that
In the
correct?
district, yeah.
So it's a significant seepage. And I will turn it over to Mr. Ed Burton.
The 37% water loss is district-wide, and we've been working on
Just
getting
state
this.
your name, please, first.
Sorry,
Thank
Ed
you.
Burton, Eden Valley Irrigation
Ed?
District. Ed Burton, yes.
Thank you, Ed.
The 37% is district-wide of water loss, and we've been working with the help of Wyoming Water Development, getting our system into pipe. This is another stage. This is stage 3 of the Farson lateral. We've got about 60% of the district in pipe at this point, so we're gaining a lot. We're starting to see a significant increase in our water because of we're cutting down the loss. So I appreciate the help we get, and you guys consider our job. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Mr. Chairman, we have some raw nerves here today on federal funding and the little nuances of getting the clearances for that federal funding. I assume you are practiced with that?
Yes, we.
And what type of environmental documents are being prepared and who prepares them? Can you tell me that?
The engineering firm that we have has got all the documents and stuff that have been turned to the, and this is an ongoing thing, and the documents that they started with have been, we've done a lot of environmental stuff, and we're continuing on, and there's, in the master plan, there's a total of what the environmental impact stuff of it is. It's an ongoing thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Burton, just a question, and you've been working very closely with the Bureau of Reclamation on this project in all phases, is that correct?
Yes. And the phase 1 of this particular project, the Bureau did the engineering, and yeah, they're really in the middle of it. Yes. Very familiar.
And just a second, maybe if you could just speak to the importance of this project to the overall Colorado system as far as salinity goes.
Originally, the project started in the late 1980s with the salt load to the Colorado River. They did a lot of on-farm stuff to cut salt load stuff. This 6,100 feet that we're talking about in this particular project is going to drop the salt load by 1,400 tons annually in the Colorado River. That's 6,000 feet. That's a pretty significant amount of salt load. So and we're seeing a dramatic decrease in the salt in the Colorado River.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Larry.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question, and it kind of takes off of Commissioner Purcell. How old is the lateral when this was put in? What date was this originally constructed?
It was put in the late 50s.
Late 50s?
1950s.
So that would fall under the National Historic Preservation Act. Is the BOR doing the cultural clearances on projects too?
They are working on all of that, and there was one lateral that we have to put up some historic things, and they're changing. With the west side lateral was a was a pretty big one on the historic side. This particular one, they did the historic stuff, I think 4 years ago that started on this particular one, and they're not pushing us real hard on this one, but we're keeping a close eye on it.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Is this a Bureau-owned project?
Bureau done it originally, yes, but we make annual payments to the Bureau, and I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a 50-year contract, and at the end of the 50 years, if everything goes well, then it'll be turned over to the district.
Okay, you're still paying?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many years are you into that, 50 years?
I think we're something less than 15 years left, but anytime that there's when they redid the spillway and stuff in the reservoir, and that's been 20 years ago, that money was added onto our total bill. So if they do any construction work in there, then it's added on, and then the years are extended out.
Okay.
So
As improvements are made, the dollars are
yeah,
added to the element.
yeah.
Thank you. This is a tour, I think, that we took 2 years ago, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was an interesting area that we got to see, so. I
Down
think
to the far side, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable, very valuable project.
Thank you.
With the water loss that you have in that ditch is half the magnitude, I think. So anyways, are there any other question by the commission or anyone in the crowd? Ed, thank you with
Thank you.
that response. Good luck with it. Get her built.
Mr. Chairman, the next project under tab P3, the Enterprise Watershed Improvement District Canal Lining 2020. The recommendation for this is to fund a 67% grant and provide a 33% loan at 4% interest for a term of 50 years for a proposed budget of $610,000. This project consists of piping approximately 4,600 feet in a stretch of canal that represents approximately 50% of the total seepage lost in the district.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Doug Thompson, and I represent the Enterprise Watershed Improvement District. This project is south of Lander. The area that this project is on it's actually on the side of a cliff. And the loss that we are experiencing there is 50% of our total loss. This fall, we found this area was leaking extremely bad. Lining was placed in. It has been lined twice before. The lining doesn't last very long, and this fall we did try and reduce that. The conveyance loss is, if we lose the ditch, it will be a significant repair job. The water that comes down through here, we are first in line. Because of our conveyance loss, it is an effect on the Lander Municipal City. We store in Fri Lake. Their source is Wortham Meadows, which is above that. So anything we can reduce will accrue a benefit to the city of Lander. I think I will stop there, Mr. Chairman, and ask for any questions.
Guys?
Are you putting this in a pipe, a PVC pipe? It's not an open, it won't be an open ditch, it'll be a big pipe.
Mr. Chairman, we are, that's our first plan, is to pipe this. We looked at 2 types of lining and 2 types of pipe. We feel that this will be a project that we can keep within the footprint of the current ditch, and it will accrue benefits longer. We have not had really good luck with lining. I know they've improved, but we feel the piping for this 4,600 feet will secure the ditch's integrity and reduce the conveyance loss.
Or something stronger?
I think it's stronger than that. It's,
HDPE.
I'm not a pipe expert, but
You mentioned that there may be some benefits to the city of Lander. Is that any part of, any contribution when you pipe this? And you're saying it's going to be more water, correct? Is that your anticipation?
yes, Mr. Chairman, because we're kind of first priority, because of our conveyance loss to supply our users, we have to draw down Fry Lake pretty significantly, which is below Worthen Meadows. So anything we can reduce in loss will accrue to the city of Lander.
Any other questions for our sponsor by the commission? With that said, Doug, good luck with it. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your approval of our project.
County commissioner?
Pardon me?
Is this tougher than being a county commissioner?
No, I don't think it comes close to that. Thank you, mister.
Well, it's good seeing you, mister.
Mr. Chairman, the next project under tab Q3, the Kirby Ditch Irrigation District Pipeline. The request is for a 67% grant and a 33% loan at 4% interest for a term of 30 years for a total project budget of $2,310,000. The project is to pipe an existing ditch. Part of this ditch is on a steep hillside, approximately half a mile long, and the project will help cover the potential of breach of that portion of it, as well as reduce seepage and improve the efficiency of delivery of water.
Good morning. My name's Dawn Pyle. I am treasurer of Kirby Ditch Irrigation District. First of all, we do appreciate working with you in the past. It's been a super easy process. This proposal, like he said, is for little over 2.5 miles of buried pipeline, replacing the lower stretch of Kirby Ditch. It's kind of our problem child at the moment. We do have the steep rocky hillside that, when we do get a good rain event, has caused a rock slide to pretty much fill the ditch. We were lucky that it didn't breach the last time. We also have sand draw that comes into the ditch in this section, which carries a huge amount of sediment, and the seepage losses are extremely high in this stretch. It will improve the efficiency of the entire system, because right now we have what we call carry water in the main canal just to get it to the end users. This section, I think, will serve about 700 acres on the lowest end of our ditch. I would entertain any questions.
I just had one. It looks like your water usage is, of course, it's going to drop, right? From 24,700 to 22,230. And that's because you're going to have less loss in the pipe.
That's just based on the seepage study that was done by Anderson on the seepage losses in that section.
That's over, what is the total section of the pipeline? Do we have that in here?
It's 2.56 miles.
6 miles?
2.56 miles, and it'll range from 36 down to 24 inch.
Any other questions by the commission for the sponsor? Yes, Kellen,
So
Commissioner.
you're presently at $8 an acre,
Really cheap, yes.
and you're going to go to 21.
We have put in for some matching funds. We're hoping to not have to go that high, but that is a possibility. They're going to scream about it, but we could do it.
Chairman,
Yes,
I have a question.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you very much. And it's clear off the project, actually, probably, but temporarily contracted water from Boise, can you explain to me what temporary contracts are and what it's costing you?
We have a temporary contract if needed for 3,000 acre feet. I think it costs us $9,000 a year. Luckily, the last few years, we haven't had to use it, which is why we're at $8 right now, because we have some savings and we're able to keep it fairly low. But that's just when we need water, if we haven't had, if Boyson is low and we have to buy a temporary contract from them. They have 3,000 acre feet kind of allotted, I guess.
Chairman, BUREC contract,
Yes.
do you know how much they have available total? Is there other temporary contract available to you on it?
Do not know that.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Commissioner Purcell?
I think, Mr. Chairman, there is a significant quantity of Boyson water available for new other uses. And you pay so much readiness to serve, and then if you call for the water, don't you pay a higher amount?
I don't think we pay anything unless we actually need the contract.
That's what I mean, but
Yeah.
when you say, so you're saying there's no readiness to serve? You don't pay an annual fee just to reserve the water for you?
No.
Okay, but then when you call for it, what's the price? $3?
9,000
$9,000?
for 3,000 acre feet,
For
yeah.
2,000 acre feet. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was it 3,000 acres?
3,000, yeah.
Any other questions for our sponsor? With that said, Don, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, the next project under tab R3, the Laramie Valley Diversion Structure 2020. The request is for a 67% grant and a 33% loan at a 4% interest in a term of 20 years. If you'll remember from yesterday, this was a closeout project that Mr. Chase DeValley presented. And in that closeout, he mentioned a letter from the Smith family. And I believe that Chase had conversations with the district and recommended that they work with Mr. Smith and family and try to come to an agreement. I don't think there was any issue, but we did recommend that they try to work it out. And you were presented a letter this morning, and I believe that this letter is a result of the communications that they had following that request. I think we talked about what the project was, and I would turn it over to the sponsor.
Morning, thanks for having us here. My name is Kevin Carrico. I represent the district. To my left is Commissioner Pep Spicer. He's the president of the district, and Mr. Sean Maters, the secretary or the treasurer, of the district. The overall project here is to replace a 100-plus-year-old diversion dam that sits in the Laramie River. It's the sole source of diversion for this district. The Level 2 study noted deficiencies in the dam and recommended a replacement. As a small part of that, the way that this district is set up is the diversion dam is in the river. It then crosses about 1.25 miles of the Smith family properties, and then it goes on to Mr. Spicer's land and becomes part of the district. Because that land, the Smith diversion in the district, it's all based on an 1897 agreement that basically allows the district to come in and repair and maintain the ditch, and then consideration of that, the Smith Family Properties is allowed to tap the ditch and use their allocated water. There's some difficulties that arise because of Mr. Smith and the Smith Family Properties bringing the water out of the Oasis ditch. And as a result of that, the commissioners, the district commissioners approached SEH, the engineering firm, about a workaround to help alleviate some of those concerns. And that's where the Smith diversion, a third headgate, if you will, or a fourth headgate, if you will, in the diversion dam, was suggested to allow the Smith Family Properties to divert their own water without having to come out of the irrigations ditch. And it's a very small part of this project, but happy to address any questions that y'all have on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, specifically, what benefits do you, the district, get from having the Smith diversion taken care of?
The district gets two big benefits from that. The first is the measuring flume for the district is 1.25 miles downstream. The Smith headgates sit between the diversion out of the river and the measuring flume. So any changes that Mr. Smith does with his water affects the commissioners, then they have to go set the headgates, and it becomes a lot of running back and forth through several gates, having to go down to make sure that the district is receiving the correct appropriation. The second bigger problem that it results in is Mr. Smith's headgates are set about 14 inches above the level of the bottom of the ditch. So that requires the Oasis ditch to be filled to a level that allows him to get the water. The resulting ditch the resulting water that flows down the ditch, then if the district's not calling for water, ends up going into the hay pastures and really impedes the haying process in several of the areas. And if the commissioners have anything to add, please feel free.
Well, I'd really like to thank the commission for their support and funding for the level 2 study, and hopefully we can go ahead with the level 3 work as well. And I guess I don't have much more to say unless I can entertain questions also.
Once you're eliminating the headaches by having the Smith out will have their own, comes out of the dam and right straight into their ditch and won't be messing with your ditch.
That's the main deal, and it can be read there right at the diversion. Right now, it's difficult for the state to read how much water is being taken.
So this is 100% agreeable to the Smith family, correct?
Yes.
And under these conditions that, of course, are in the letter?
Yes, that's the way I understand.
Okay. And does any of that affect our funding? I don't think so, would it? I'll ask you for that question, but it's a recommendation, so
Our
you've went
recommendation
through the
was that
reference
they
points.
work that out amongst the two of them.
Good.
And I guess, Mr. Chairman, I have to ask the question, the amount you're going to invest in Mr. Smith's diversion, you feel the benefits to the district exceed that investment?
Yes, sir. And if I could just follow up for one moment. We sat down and visited with Mr. Smith Tuesday night, and he drafted that letter in response to the discussions we have. And his overall concern, I guess I would say, is that he wants to make sure that he's included in the decisions. We certainly think that it's up to the engineers to make the design and implement that headgate that might benefit Mr. Smith. But I don't think that we're in a position, or I don't think Mr. Smith should be in the position to dictate what the design of the dam would be, but it would be up to the engineers to make that decision. And, Mr. Smith's diversion is a very small part of the overall project that we're doing here, but we certainly want to make sure, that he's heard, and we do have a close relationship necessarily because the first mile and a quarter of the ditch goes across his property. So I'm hopeful as we move forward that we can have a amicable solution to all of these issues that have arisen with the entire district.
Is there an easement on the first portion of your ditch?
The easement was granted in 1897. It's always been in place. It's always been workable. Our hope is, as part of this, so to answer your question, yes, there is an easement in place. Our hope is that we can improve on that easement as part of this process.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Chairman?
Yes, Ogden?
Yes, we talked about them. Are you amicable towards what they put in their letter to agreeing to it? Because we never really addressed that, and they're pretty specific in what they want.
So I think what they're asking in the letter is really engineering decisions. I don't think that we can dictate what the height of the head gate would be until they get in there, do their surveys, and determine what the height of the head gate would need to be for the system to work properly. There's some other language in here that I don't think we're agreeable to, but overall, I think we're agreeable to to allowing that. Basically, the only part of the Smith Head Gate that is part of this funding, this level 3 application, is basically poking a hole through our existing head wall, putting a slide gate on it, and then anything that happens behind our head gate would be up to him to do. So he would be responsible for his ditches behind the head gate. That's not part of this level 3 application.
Mr. Chairman? Well, level 3, we're at the end. We're building. And I guess they're asking to put checks in ditches, and they're asking for some guarantees. And I guess from my end, as I said, and I don't want to be impetitive to it, but I also am sympathetic towards a landowner that's got an easement on them and a structure. And I'm not sure where this falls, and I'm going to lead a little bit to maybe our commissioner and ex-commissioner Purcell of what process is on this. But they're asking for binding things as part of level 3 here. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm hearing you say you don't agree with them. So we got to come to some kind of nexus here, in my opinion, before we, at least me on the legislative end, pull the pin and say, I'll go. Because once we've pulled the pin, the force is behind us for them to allow you to run over them. And I don't want to be in that position very bad.
Absolutely, and we certainly don't want to be in the position of running over them. I think what we agreed on the other night in totality is there is an existing easement agreement that gives rights to both sides, and we certainly do not want to impede any way, shape, or form on the rights that they have in the ditch already, and the right to convey water out of the ditch. A concern that they had was if this additional head gate was put in, would they lose all right to withdraw water from the ditch? And absolutely not. They have that right to take water from the ditch, but it's not, this would just be a convenience. It wouldn't in any way limit what they can take. As far as checks in the ditch, those type of things, to me, that's downstream. Doesn't implicate this project, and that's something that we can certainly work with them in the future. And it's another solution to the existing problem, but I don't think, as we sit here today, are in a place to decide what that check would be or how it would be done. I think that's something that they'd have to consider and discuss and make sure it's beneficial to both parties in the future.
Mr. Chairman, and I guess I don't have level 2 here, but was none of this addressed in level 2? Because I guess to me, I'm a little confused here, because we're at a deal if someone's left with a head gate that's not usable, we've signed off on it, and I'm not saying it is, but they're insinuating maybe it is. I really think this needs probably a little further look on the thing, and I don't know how to look at it. So
This issue was brought up with the engineering firm that did the level 2 study. They looked at all of this and considered what the issues were that were coming up with the Smith Headgate. And like I said, this is a small part of this overall project, but this was kind of the recommendation that the engineering firm came up with to potentially assist the district and assist Mr. Smith in a more convenient delivery of the water. What we're saying here is we would put that diversion, that fourth diversion for Mr. Smith in the head wall, but he could use it if he wanted to. If he chose not to use it, then we just continue as is. And the cost of the district, when I look through the numbers, it looks like it's about $12,500 to put that diversion in the head wall, and then would allow him the opportunity to use it or not use it as he saw fit. But in all instances, the underlying agreement would stay in place.
Mr. Chairman, some follow-up. Basically, what you're saying is, even if Mr. Smith does not want to participate in the new diversion, you still feel it's a good project and a necessary project?
I think that it provides future benefits for the district, for sure, and it also, as a part of that, would provide benefits for Mr. Smith or his successors for that piece of property.
Mr. Chairman, one more. The head gates and, the checks and other things mentioned in the Smith letter, that is something you would fund separate from this project on his canal? You would take care of by yourself without us?
So when he's talking about the check, that's actually in the district canal, and that's
Okay.
something that if we went forward and did some kind of a check to allow Mr. Smith to more easily divert water without having to fill up the ditch to the appropriate level that requires now, I think that that's something that we can work out, but I think that the district would probably want to fund that and build that check.
Thank you.
So in other words, your application here does not deal with some of the elements that are in the letter. Is that correct? We're dealing with a structure here to allow the water to come out of a head gate, correct? The other premises, we're not funding down the ditch that are mentioned in the letter. So we have, the letter just doesn't contain to this project or correspond just to the project. It explains to what your district and the project in a combination would concur, correct?
That is correct, that this
Okay.
goes outside the scope of this project.
Yes, all right, well, thank you for that.
Chairman?
Another question down here, Commissioner?
One legal entity.
Now, my understanding is, his diversion is below the existing structure in your canal?
Yeah, he has three head gates that tap the Oasis ditch. The first one being a couple hundred yards below the main diversion structure, and the last one being close to a mile down the diversion structure.
You're concerned about the one that's closer to the structure? Now, that one, if you move it from there to the new structure, do you need to get a point of diversion change through the state of Wyoming or state engineer's office, or no?
I would let Mr. Smith speak to that, but it's my understanding that would not occur. That his point of diversion is the Laramie River. His existing water right, the point of diversion is the Laramie River.
Okay.
Thanks. Yep.
Any other questions for our sponsor? With that said, thank you, Kevin,
Thank you.
and your co-parts. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, the next project is under tab S2, the Savory Little Snake River Water Conservancy District Savory Creek Diversion 2020. The request was for a 67% grant in the amount of $301,500. The office's recommendation on this was a do not fund. We talked about this in the workshop. We talked about the history of it. And the reason for the recommendation from our office was that the structure is on private property and it's a private structure. And we flagged that issue so that we can talk and present the information to you guys to determine if there's adequate consideration for public benefit. And I would turn it over.
And with that, Bob Davis with the Little Snake River Conservancy District. Thank you guys for hearing my story here. Okay, water development and have been doing business with the Little Snake River Conservancy District, has been doing business with the water development for a number of years. The Conservancy District over the last 26 years has applied for 18 different infrastructure projects and received the funding for them. The Conservancy District has completed all of them, including the last one on Battle Creek this year, which you'll hear the closeout on it. Since this project, as you have indicated in the email, does not meet the requirements, yet it mirrors the other 18 that you have previously funded. And I am trying to consider what has changed in the criteria here.
You answer that. Well, I think it came down, and I guess we'll let our director here answer the question and why it was rejected at their base, okay? And then we'll step in with what is the next step in the elements. So why was it rejected through the commission?
Our recommendation was based on a Attorney General's opinion that was dated 2017, and that opinion prompted the do not fund recommendation.
Even though the previous 18 projects mirror this with the same issues. But anyway, Mr. Chairman, when I brought that up, basically it said, the response was, well, you've been wrong in the past, but that doesn't mean you should be wrong in the future. So there you go. Okay. Well, I'd like to point out some of that thought behind that theory here. Okay, the Conservancy District received this email back from Water Development, and it says that the project does not meet the requirements. Specifically, it's on private ground, is what I'm saying here. I'll read you a portion of that email, or do you have that available here? Okay, it's from the Water Development, and it says here on number 7, the basis for funding recommendations. The improvements are needed to increase the water supply and efficiency and reduce the O&M costs. That's our point of view here. However, the Water Development Commission may not fund water projects that primarily benefit private entities without the exchange of adequate consideration. Based upon the response from the applicant, the structure is not owned and operated by the Little Snake River Conservancy District. Well, this is point number 1 here. Okay. The Conservancy District does not own the structure. This is true. But we operate that structure in the district when we are administrating water. And this happens every year, every season. We administrate water through the valley there.
For those of you who do not know, since 2006, the Conservancy District has contracted with the state of Wyoming for 14,000 acre-feet out of high savory water to be delivered and administered to the irrigators as well as 2 municipalities in the valley there. We tax the irrigators as well as collect the special assessments for the high savory water. These are public benefits from the infrastructure that you guys have created through the past 18 projects. There are some other public benefits out of these projects through the Conservancy Districts administrating this water in the valley there. We have created a fisheries throughout the whole valley. Pretty good fisheries. And we have also protected candidate fish, the flannelmouth and the bluehead, et cetera, that live within our district by the shepherding of this water and what we've done with this water in the system. Okay, that's number one that I wanted to create, show you, is that we do operate the system within our valley. We do not own it, we operate it. Okay, number two on there, it says, an exchange for adequate consideration. With that, I would like you to look at what was handed out to you, the ruling from the Wyoming Supreme Court in January. And in there, it says, on the second page there, relying on Wyoming Statute 417-102, the court ruled that irrigation districts are formed and owned in the public interest, as indicated by the legislation direction that states concerning irrigation districts shall be liberally construed to promote the public welfare by reclaiming and irrigating lands. The court also found that to the extent irrigation districts promote the public welfare, they are created for the promotion of public affairs that derive their authority from the state. The second paragraph down below there, the court then concluded, however, the public nature of these assessments is established by other statutory provisions. For example, an irrigation district's annual budget must be approved by the district court. Such assessments are levied and assessed by the county commissioners. The assessments are extended upon the tax roll by the county assessor. The assessments are collected by the same officer and in the same manner, and at the same time the state collects its taxes. Based on these findings, the court concluded the following. Read the statutory provisions of the to give irrigation districts the assessments the character of the public funds. So that was a Supreme Court decision. I hope you can read it better than I can say it, but anyway. Also on that, I asked the clerk there to hand out a handout which gives you the Articles 7 of the Water Conservancy Districts. In that, if you refer to the bottom paragraph, 41.3.705, liberal construction. This act is being necessary to serve and preserve the public health, safety, convenience, and welfare for the security of the public and private property. It shall be liberally construed to the effect of the purposes of this act. If you go up above there to 41.3.701, the purpose of a conservancy district. It spells out in there that it is hereby declared that to provide for conservation of water resources of the state of Wyoming for the greatest beneficial use of the water within this state, the organization of water conservancy districts, and construction for works as herein defined by such districts are a public use and will. There's the following criteria here. Number 4, it says directly benefit municipalities by providing adequate supplies of water for domestic use. Every fall when we release water out of the High Savory, we deliver water to the town of Baggs and the town of Dixon. Okay? Number 5, directly benefits lands to be irrigated or drained from the works to be constructed. With this infrastructure, that's what we're doing there. And then if you go down there to A, to control, make use of, and apply for beneficial use all unappropriated waters in the state, to direct and supplemental use of such waters for domestic, transportation, industrial, manufacturing, irrigation, power, recreation, and other beneficial uses. To each and every one of these structures, the Conservancy District has an easement in order to operate them. That's part of the criteria there. Number C, to cooperate with the United States under the federal reclamation laws or other federal laws now existing or hereafter enacted, the agencies of the state of Wyoming for the construction and financing of works in the state of Wyoming as herein defined, and for the operation and maintenance thereof. That's item number 2 there that I wanted to address, that gives us the authority there. And the final point that I'd like to point out here to the commission is that number 3 there is the criteria the Water Development Commission. Furthermore, per operating criteria, the Water Development Commission may introduce projects into the program at a level 3 status if the project sponsor has completed a feasibility study that meets Water Development Commission requirements. It does not appear that this feasibility study has been completed. At that, we've not been required to do a feasibility study on the past 18 projects. The Conservancy District, in cooperation with the Conservation District, employs a licensed professional engineer who designs these and permits these projects with all the other federal agencies, including the NRCS, the Army Corps of Engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So out of the last 18 projects, the feasibility study being referenced here in the email has never been mentioned as a requirement. So I urge you to reconsider our proposal.
Mr. Chairman, I want to get specific to the diversion itself. What's happening out there right now on the creek? To divert this diversion structure, what does it look like right now?
This diversion structure right now, without this enhanced development of that structure, it's a fragmentation in that system. They have to go in there and push it up, dam it up, whatever they have to do. We've gone through and taken all those obstructions out.
And then, so, give me a time frame. When in fact do they waller into the Savory Creek and push this material?
Usually after the end of irrigation season. Sometimes it's been done in the spring, but it depends on what the spring conditions are.
What's the capacity of the diversion structure? How much water are they diverting through? And how many lands are they serving through this particular diversion structure?
I'd have to refer that to Larry over there.
What was the question?
How many other?
Mr. Chairman, I think the senators, how many CFS are diverted through this diversion structure, and how many lands do they serve?
My recollection, this is the Irwin-Lambert diversion. My recollection is there's probably in the nature of about somewhere between 240 and 300 acres that's irrigated out of this diversion structure. But those return flows that are then captured by the Kelsey Rear, which you guys have funded, those return flows are then captured by the Brewster Clay, which you guys have funded. Those return flows are then captured by the Cobb Morgan, and those return flows are then, so as those return flows, a lot of those never make it back to the creek that are diverted out of this diversion structure or captured on the ditches for these other diversion structures. The 5 immediately downstream from this one, which this is the second diversion structure below the mitigation property on Little Sandstone that the commission holds. This would be the 6th out of those 5. There's a total on 7 on Savory Creek that divert water. For a little more edification, when did they get in the creek to do this? Every year prior to the release of high Savory water. On their direct flow appropriation, when the Savory Creek drops down, they get in there and they start shoveling rocks and bales and any other debris or detritus that's at hand to try to plug the creek up. Then what happens is we release high Savory water, and it washes all of that stuff out of the creek, and it ends up migrating down the creek. So it is a operation and a significant operation and maintenance problem. But you have to understand the nature of the system. One structure facilitates the operation of the next structure and the operation of the next structure. 5 of the structures directly below this have all been funded through the Wyoming Water Development Commission program for rehabilitation.
Thank you. So let's say, what'd you say, 300 acres at 70, 1 CFS per 70? Plus, are they a customer of yours for storage water?
Mr. Chairman, they do have a contract with the Water Conservancy for delivery of high Savory water through this structure. Not all of the lands, but the majority of those. I believe there's 80 acres of that total under the Irwin-Lambert ditch. I don't have the numbers handy with me. But the majority of the lands irrigated on this diversion do have contracts with the Conservancy District for the delivery of high Savory water.
Other question, other follow-up?
Yes.
Is fishing allowed along this segment?
Mr. Chairman, that's up to the discretion of the landowner. You'd have to stop and ask us. But I think Mr. Davis already referenced every single structure from the confluence of Savory Creek that you guys this commission has previously funded incorporates fish passage as part of those projects. We work cooperatively with Trout Unlimited to actually tag and mark fish in Savory Creek. We know they run from the Little Snake River through the reconstruction and rehabilitation of those other 5 diversion structures and incorporating fish passage. We know those fish go from the Little Snake. They will move all the way up below High Savory Dam, and they may oftentimes turn and go up Big Gulch, which is the second biggest tributary to Savory Creek. As part of all of these projects to benefit the public, and just upstream of this structure, approximately 3/4 of a mile, maybe a mile, is the land owned by the commission that has public access. These fish just don't sit on one piece of property. And what we know the nature of Savory Creek is that as low flows start to drop later into August and early June, those fish migrate up and down the system all the way up onto the mitigation property that the state currently owns. So that was part of the overall consideration of public benefit, is the defragmentation of the habitat, and to allow these fish to be able to move up and down that system so they can get to the Forest Service lands above them, so they can get to the mitigation ground, and to provide that opportunity to enhance that fisheries.
Mr. Chairman, I understand all that, but I'm talking about fishermen, not fish themselves. Are fishermen allowed to fish this stretch of the stream?
Mr. Chairman, there is not a public easement recorded for fishing on this property, and I'm not aware of the commission ever requiring that as a terms and condition of a loan or a grant.
Mr. Chairman, what we are trying to get to is what are the public benefits of this diversion? And if in fact that this landowner was cooperative to fishermen, I think I'm just trying to add that to the potential benefits, Larry. I'm not trying to be adversary here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I take offense to that being added in, and this, I really do. I'm going to come straight out on it, regardless of public use or not, is conservation easements, which are widely used in Wyoming, allow no recognition of public access, whatever, while they still have a public good. And I think we're heading down a very narrowly defined path of public good that flies in the face of the Wyoming Constitution and flies in the face of statute of we're very narrowly defining what a person or a group defines as a public good. And that's a dangerous path to go down.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not suggesting an easement be applied to this request. I'm just wondering if the water user is friendly to fishermen. And that's all I was trying to find.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman,
Have we ever asked an irrigation district if we allow the canals and the ditches to be fished, which have fish in them? Have we ever done that, ever?
Mr. Chairman, the issue here is this is private lands. And that makes it a different game than an irrigation district. What we're trying to do is figure out, is there enough public benefit here to warrant funding this project? And so that's the point of my question, is to get a better handle on public benefits if we do install this diversion structure.
Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate that, the question, so let me see if I can try to address that. If we look at everything that's going on over there associated with the public benefits of private fisheries, so let's start at High Savory. Right now, the commission has a contract with the Little Snake River Conservation District to utilize our engineers and to provide some funding for the 4 miles directly below High Savory, to reconstruct that, to improve the fisheries from that point down in your core mitigation area. So everything that we've tried to construct, every single diversion structure that we've done with the commission has incorporated fish passage. The fish passage is a major public benefit for a multitude of reasons, is because those fish move up and down the system. They are not static on any one piece of property. That's the nature of all the tagging data. We've worked with Trout Unlimited on an adopt-a-trout program where they actually tag these fish and GPS monitor them going up and down the system. So the answer to the question is the entire system, and this is just one more piece of the puzzle to try to get and maximize those public benefits, is to defragment that habitat. Do not strand those fish below the creek through this diversion structure as it currently operates. When you shove that creek up, you block those fish from being able to migrate up the creek. And what happens is they get stranded. As the temperatures go up, we've done all the temperature monitoring with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department to model the temperatures on Savory Creek from the dam to the confluence to address this fisheries issue. You can't look at one piece of the creek and say, is this the fish? Those fish move up and down. It is a system and whole, and everything we've tried to do, to the extent, Commissioner Purcell, that the irrigators into a memorandum of agreement with the commission and the Game and Fish a few years ago to use 500 acre feet of water out of the irrigation pool to release that specifically to support that fisheries on the entirety of Savory Creek. Everything we've done is to try to maximize the benefit of High Savory water, maximize the benefit of that fisheries. It has turned in, if you would, I was just referring to you 2 years ago, there was an article in Wyoming Wildlife Magazine that highlighted the successful benefits of the High Savory Dam and all of the restoration work, the diversion structures that have been modified to the fisheries to the state of Wyoming. I think there's more than ample evidence available through all of the activity that this is just one more piece of the public benefit to try to address that fisheries issue, that the question that you asked.
That more concisely, Senator, are you suggesting that a new diversion structure would help the state, the Game and Fish, and your district in achieving its fishery goals on Savory Creek?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely.
Whew. Took a long time to get there, Mr. Chairman. How many more of these diversion structures are on Savory Creek that if we approve this one, are we going to see?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you have another one that's directly above us, above this one that we've looked at. The probability that I think that you're going to see anything anytime in the near future is remote. You also have one within the reach below High Savory that we're currently working with the Game and Fish Department and the Commission in the mitigation area that will be modified. It's part of the master plan that our engineer put together, that your office has worked with us. So the answer to your question is one for sure, another maybe, and another not. And so when you look from High Savory to the confluence, that's all the diversion structures left in that whole existing system.
Mr. Chairman? Not to muddy this, and I think we're clear where we're at on this project. But the whole point's getting missed on this public-private end. The rulings that he read earlier and did it, make it really clear, it's not the purview to be judge and jury of either a state agency nor a commission and group of people to confer how this falls. The courts have spoken and legislation's spoken. When you read the statutes and you read it, and this is the head button we're going to have, and you're inviting a major lawsuit. What Senator Hicks was late answering the question, the last project we just did, and he encouraged me not to say it because you don't get into it. We just funded a private head gate to a private ditch. We did it with a wink of an eye and a big nod. If you read the application, it says, what's the benefits? And it was clearly in there, and it says none. We heard testimony, we're spending $14,000 to put head gate in to divert to an individual ranch. The same issue becomes true on every district that you run. The last person on the ditch, the last one, so we fund a lateral. Go through projects day, another one, the application says, it serves 50-some users, but it benefited 700 acres. That I looked at the map, and it's probably 2 users is my guess. That's the end of that lateral. It's the whole piece. It was $1 million lateral. We had no problem saying, yes, that's fine, because it's part of a district and it ran there. If you break down to the logic you're using, and this is for the AG, there's always a last user on the ditch. And that piece is served by that piece, and that's an individual use. I don't care how you cut it. He's part of a bigger group, a broader good. And what we say is we allow him to get that water because he's part of a bigger group that's all a public good. And that's what these rulings have said, is when you're part of a district, which is a public entity, a taxing entity, and you're part of a bigger group that does in good in general for the public. That was that Supreme Court decision, that's the Constitution. It says, as long as you're part of that bigger group, that they're allowed to do exactly what you're trying to fight. And you're down to talking about what is the public good. For you, it's fish. For the next guy, it might be deer hunting. For the next guy, it might be a wetland for mosquitoes or butterflies. And that's where I'm at is, I think you're heading down really a tough path. If you want to sit here and application by application, you try to determine the public good. I think it's clear the courts have stated, when you are an irrigation district, you are a conservancy district, that there is a public good. It's a de facto public good, and it's not to be proven court case by court case, which it may very well be, and that's what I think you're inviting here. You're inviting conservancy districts and irrigation districts to do it because they're who's applying. This isn't individuals. We do not allow an individual. Joe Smith can't come in and apply for a diversion or a canal or a pipeline. But we do allow a public entity to do it, and we recognize that public entity. And, I'm going to boil this to the surface, and I'm going to be serious about it because we keep trying to splinter it and bring it off. It's about fishing. It's about this. It's about that. That's not at all what the Constitution envisioned, nor the statutes that are there. They envisioned groups of people got together and took ground that was dry ground that had minimal public benefit. And they improved that ground for the benefit of all of the people of Wyoming, even though they didn't require them to be able to hunt, fish, trap, do anything on them. And when we start publicly talking about that, that's the next thing that comes is we want public access now to your irrigation district because we've got lots of reservoirs out there that we don't allow public access to. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to come and say, well, if you want my money, you're going to provide us X, Y, and Z. Bad path to go down. And like I said, I know I'm opening a can of worms here. I'm going to face it head on. I'm tired of us dancing around the edge. You can go into another executive session if you need to, and the AG can try to defend it if he needs to. But my guess is ultimately, when you look at case law and the deal, it's going to have a different outcome than you may think.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're misunderstanding my questions. I have no intent on this project or any other project other than dams and reservoirs requiring public access. I am trying to understand that what this physical act does in terms of public benefits, direct or indirect. And if I could, I have one more question. Does this in any way, or who is actually out, are you doing the diversion work out in the river, or is it the landowner doing that?
Conservancy District.
The Conservancy District.
Mr. Chairman?
So they are physically, and this would in fact, by doing this, would reduce your O&M costs? If we put this diversion structure in, would that reduce the district's O&M costs?
Okay, let me get this correct here. You asked if the Conservancy District is doing the work themselves?
Is right now, today, who are you using your resources to waller out in Savory Creek so this water can be diverted to the lands? The district, are you doing that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. If I may. So the arrangement that we have with the Conservancy District is they pay for part of the cost to hire a professional licensed engineer. No different than any other Level 3 project. These projects that you grant these funds are then go through the public bidding process to hire a private contractor to do the actual construction. The district's engineer does the design, the permitting, the construction inspection of these projects. I don't know if that's the question you're trying.
Mr. Chairman, no, I must not be clear. Okay. Absent this diversion structure. Okay. Absent this diversion structure, does the district, through its agreement with the landowner or whatever, are they the one that's doing the year-to-year temporary diversion? Or is it the landowner?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the way that works is when there's a free river, the landowner operates the structure. The minute that we go under administration, under our water rights is 500 second foot in the Little Snake. At that point in time, because of the nature of the assessments that the Conservancy District has and the contract water that they have with you guys under High Savory, they start making the calls as to what head gate is adjusted up or down based on the level of the river. They coordinate that with the hydrographers out of the state engineer's office over in the Saratoga. So they actively administer. Once you get past to the Free River and we are under administration, the Conservancy District, through their arrangement with the Conservation District and working with the Board of Control and the hydrographers, is the ones that start saying you need to cut down, and on occasion, they actually go and turn the head gates to the appropriate level. So I don't know if that answered the question, but when we hit 500 CFS, that river is under administration of the Conservancy District.
Mr. Chairman, we're just not getting to my question. Who's doing the O&M right now on this diversion? who is physically out there piling up water or dirt so it will go down this diversion structure? I'm trying to make the point that you could the district, a public entity, could be achieving O&M benefits by a permanent diversion structure. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, I'm glad you finally clarified that, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you. But that is exactly what happens. We reduce the cost of an O&M. You reduce the amount of sedimentation that's released every time you get in there with equipment. So that, again, that's under the authority and the control of the Conservancy District to have permanent infrastructure in place. There's no re-entry into that system. Significantly reduces the O&M costs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I guess
Yes.
I'm going to open another little can of worms that
Representative
got started by Ogden over here. My concern with this, with what we're doing here is how many other districts might be in the same boat. I'm not sure I'm clear about the feasibility study, what that involves, how many districts are required to do that. If this district did this feasibility study and explained all of what's been talked about here, would that satisfy the requirements that the AG wants for this to be what the requirements needed for this to be a public entity? Because I'm not sure we've gone on tours, we've seen structures we've built on private lands. It may be, there's certainly easements by the irrigation districts, but I'm not sure I see a clear difference. And I think the same things have to be required of all the irrigation districts, and how many of them would be affected the same way, and does the AG review all of them? I'm just curious how, what kind of shape we're in. We're going to be approving these things shortly in legislature.
Mr. Chairman, it is part of the office's rules that either a level 2 study or level 1 study be performed or something equivalent. And in this case, I would offer that an equivalent consideration would be the work that they've done in the past successfully. That could be for your consideration a replacement to a formal study, if you would choose to look at it that way.
I just had a couple of quick questions pertaining to what was addressed earlier, and maybe you can answer these.
Right.
Does a Game and Fish recognize this fishery as a Wyoming fishery? In other words, did they classify it as a fishery, the Game and Fish?
Prior to High Savory or after
No,
High Savory?
anytime right now. What we're doing with the fish, is that classified as a Game and Fish entity within the state of Wyoming as a fishery? Is it classified?
Yes.
It is, thank you. The other one is there easements around this structure, that proposed structure, or could there be easements so that it's, even though it's on a private landowner's property, could there be easements acquired for that purpose, or are they there now?
Mr. Chairman, I'll answer that. Anytime we participate in a program with you, it is required for the Conservancy District to get an easement, and that is recorded on the title. So every project that we have done with the commission has a recorded easement for the Conservancy District from the nearest point of access. So in some of these cases, there is an easement recorded for a half a mile or a mile across that private land from the nearest public access point to that structure and includes that structure. So before we can move forward with the program, we have to procure those easements and they are recorded on the title of that land in the name of the Water Conservancy District.
Answered my question, so there will be easements, even though there isn't today. Okay.
Before we can move forward with your program, that will have to occur.
Okay, the other issue here is, it appears like we have 140 irrigators within your district. Is that correct? Or participants? Am I reading this right?
Different landowners within the district?
Yeah, landowners.
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Oh, where did I see something here?
In the application.
104.
104, it's in there.
Okay. So all of these, they all receive water. 104 of the property owners receive water, pay their fees, are in your district, correct?
There are portions of the district that are above the confluence of Savory Creek that are in our irrigation district, or in the Conservancy District. There are some lands there.
They benefit
From
by this
High
structure?
Savory or
No, by this particular structure.
by
How
this?
many benefit from,
By this particular structure?
yeah,
No, there are lands outside of, no, there are, within the district itself, okay? Below this structure, the lands, but there are lands above this structure that are in the district that do not benefit from that. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking how many landowners benefit from the structure that's proposed in your amendment to be constructed? How many? I know it comes off of
On
the
the
river.
Irwin-Lambert diversion, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about this diversion structure.
What is there, 2 or 3 down that?
My recollection is there's 3, and it's again that, somewhere between that 240 to 300 and some acres under this diversion. But again, getting back to the return
though.
flows are recaptured.
Okay, thank you. That's, I think, all I had.
Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, tiny comment, because you just went down the exact path I was trying to make the example of, is we have 104 users, and we recognize as a group they provide a benefit. And in almost every project we do, it doesn't affect every user. If you're in Midvale, it may have 2,800 users. The lateral we fund may only affect 1 through 8 users. And always, the last guy in the ditch is an individual user. And so if you use logic that you can only have it affect everybody, or it has to affect all of them, you defeat the public purpose that we do in all public projects. The public purpose says we put an entire group together. And this is, it's really close to home to me because my district's been turned down every time. Belfouche, our Crook County Irrigation District, has dozens of users in them. And they're ranches that are all off the main stream of the river. We've been denied as a district the ability to apply for anything because each one of those structures or diversions is only a ranch. But we pay our fees as a group for the entire thing. I pay fees for everything our district does, top to bottom, whether it benefits my ranch or another. And the public benefit comes as a group. And that's what public benefit has always been. It's not about a person, and that's what the Constitution's spoken to. It says you can't give me as an individual anything. And that's fair and it's right. But it does say when a group of you come in and you form a group that's for public benefit, we can do it. And that was my argument, was when you break this down to how many people are on the lateral, 1, 2, well, we can't fund it because that's an individual deal. And that's blatantly not the case. There's 104, and all 104 benefit from the public good that comes from operating as a group. The same logic goes back to, you ask about, does this benefit a specific thing? What's the public good? Have we ever asked, what does a 20-inch pipeline have to do with public good that puts water onto a piece of ground? Because these are tough questions, folks. And what we're really talking about, and that's why I said it shouldn't be this. The Constitution speaks clearly to public good. And the good comes when you look at it in general, and it's not specifics. That's why I hump up. It's not that I hate fishing, But I happen to like a lot of other things, and a lot of people, it may be endangered species, it might be mosquitoes, it might be open space. And when you start that deal, there's a reason when we write statutes, and they wrote the Constitution, they were very careful about talking about broad areas and narrow areas. And if you want to talk about, well, we only benefit fishing, they just said it only benefits fishing. When you look at the Supreme Court decisions, they don't narrow it. They say public good as a group. So, I think somewhat, and I'm muddying Little Snake's application, and I'm sorry about it.
Knock it off.
But the overall conversation has to be had in this group, because we keep having AG opinions, and it's how you ask the question. I can tell you, the way the last question was asked, they made the correct ruling. It was a great ruling, by the way. But they didn't ask the question that really needed asked, and that was, did the Constitution intend for legal entities of the state to have to provide that public good that way? And that question's never been asked, folks. We never ask it that way. We said, when a private individual applies, does it? And that's the question, is a group a public benefit as a group and an entity of the state? And I think it's very clear. The documentation we have, it's very clear. And I think you invite a major lawsuit, and which I probably am going to participate in, that talks about what the public good really is, because it's clear that they intended. That's why they let conservancy districts, ditch districts, and irrigation districts form, was they were a public good. It took ground that had very little public benefit. It was just dry ground, and it turned it into irrigated ground that provided habitat for deer and insects and fish and everything else. And I hate to see us break off that path. The past history of this organization has been to fund, and we do not break down these applications. It's back to what Senator Hicks came after. We don't break them down to who's the individual person that benefits from this, because the benefit is for the entire district. And we need to consider that.
I think we got off on the wrong foot. I don't think the intent was to do what we've been talking about. It was a no-fund application. And what we are trying to do is our due diligence to make sure that we're spending the money on the right projects and not getting off on some tangent. And I think we need to lower our hackles and everybody get over their feelings and do what's right for the project. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Go ahead.
I think we've kicked this horse around enough. I think we can either vote or think. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I second that motion.
That's what we will do.
Are you voting yes or no?
No.
No, you might be able to go now.
That's right. I think we'll give it some consideration, drain our thoughts, and we'll be back here after a short recess, if that's good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one quick question. If this is constructed, is the district operating and maintaining this structure?
Chairman, the district has the option with every one of those, but typically the answer is on the short-term, the day-to-day operation, but
When this
the
thing
overall
goes-
operation and maintenance falls back because of the contractual obligations on the district.
All right, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
And we'll come back and rehash the issue.
What's that?
Yeah. Well, there's gonna be many of them because it's a base issue that's here. I'll make you a wager. If it doesn't change, it'll ultimately end up with a Supreme Court decision, and I'll put you a $100 bill.
I don't think it'll have to go that far. I don't think so. I don't think it should. Not if we know how to govern.
Clear.
I would say, I hope
I
that
think I've
doesn't.
passed the test, tell me the truth. I mean, I just.
Carry on.
All right, with everything, we will carry on. We'll open our meeting back up. And I don't know where we were at a point, but what I would like to do at this time is ask Andrew, our guidance counsel, for a comment based on what he's heard so far, or how the law may require or work. So at this time, if you could give us just a few comments. There's three things I think that we are looking for, and I think that's what he'll address, is public purpose, public benefits, and non-incidental items. Is that correct? So with that, if you have a few words to say, we'll try and get to a decision-making process here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think in answer to your request, the constitutional provision that I think the commission is looking at is Article 16, Section 6, which in part deals with restricting giving gifts to private individuals or corporations. There's a test that has come up in case law. It's three parts. The first part is there a public benefit? There needs to be that to move on. If there is a public benefit, then you move to step 2, which is there something more than an incidental private benefit? If there isn't a private benefit or it's only incidental, you can stop there. If there is a non-incidental private benefit, then you move to step 3, which is where you consider all the public benefits, all the private benefits, and determine if the private benefits are grossly disproportional to what the public benefits are. And I think that the case law has considered a lot of different types of things to be public benefits, and I think the commission has the ability to ask questions to identify what benefits would be in what categories as you see fit, so, before making the decision.
Thank you, Andrew. With that, our sponsor, is he still, yeah, we're still going to carry on maybe with
Off of the hot seat, yeah.
with a few additional questions. With that said, what I would like to know in my factor of making a declaration on this, who is going to operate this structure?
If there is water being diverted from High Savory down there, the Conservancy District would be in charge of the administration of that water in that system. Other than that, it would be on the free rivers and be the irrigator in his statutory right?
That was the last question that I had, and I just wanted to know if any other commissioners had any questions at this point in time?
Mr. Chairman, one thing that Andrew, our attorney, had said that is of particular interest is there a disproportionate benefit between the private benefit and the public benefit, and just listening to the arguments here, I think especially with the fishery side of this, I see, even though there isn't public access for the health of that fishery for the public good, I think that is certainly something that we need to consider, and that when the diversion is in place, or the way it is put in place now, the water benefits downstream users indirectly, not down Savory Creek, but from return flow to return flow. There seems to be benefit of that water flowing across other properties, and I think there is public benefit. I just wanted to say that.
keep it included in the full motion for we have.
There's two issues that here today, I think that we may have a choice in. And I don't know how everyone would feel if we needed to dig deeper into this and get more of a clear discretion answer from our Attorney General, or we sit here and make a decision today. There is the option, and I know we spent an hour on this, we could, and I think without effect, if we need to, we could table it. I don't think it would conscrew the time element in the issues, because I think we'd have our next meeting. If it was approved, we could run it through at that time, and it wouldn't change any of the timing aspects of that, and I'd have to concur with our director. Is that correct? Based on, if we do a table, we're still good for January, and we're still good for the funding for this coming year, correct?
I believe that is correct, that if we table it today, it could be discussed in the January meeting and then added to the bill as an amendment if it were approved.
As I look at this, and I think there's good argument here on both sides. It's hard to go against today our Attorney General, the 2017 recommendation that he had whenever we got this order. But, and I think there's good argument. I really believe that it could go, I mean, some sides, yes, it works. Other sides, we still have an opinion that we have to deal with. So with that, it's up to the commission. We can either poll on whether we want to take a vote today or whether we want to table.
Mr. Chairman, I move we table this until the January meeting and let both sides decide what they're going to do, and then we'll put the gloves back on.
Mr. Chair, I would like to leave the commission with one, I mean, this is straight audit. I mean, the conservancy districts are charged by Article 7 out of the Constitution that we have the authority to act on behalf of the public here. I mean, I can't see, it's the law. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, where I'm falling on this right now is that if we are showing that the district is accruing benefits, that's good enough. That passes muster. Fish, whatever it is aside. That we have to assume that the district is operating to the benefit of its members, and that, in fact, by this request, they do believe that this is good for their district and its members. And I think, in my humble opinion, that passes the test of public benefits. Don't want to talk about fish, don't want to talk about any of the other stuff that's come up. But at the same time, because once we take this step, we're going to be stuck with it. Therefore, I'm going to suggest second the amendment to table the Savory project.
Well stated, sir. I like what you said.
Any other comments by any of our other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that I would be voting against tabling this because I apologize if I'm missing something, but I just don't see that this project is that different from many other things that we fund. And as an advocate for irrigation, I'm concerned about precedent being set, because I think if we applied the same scrutiny to this project that to other projects that we funded or that will be coming before us, I'm concerned that all we're going to do is end up funding municipal water supply. And there's many irrigation systems that the ones I'm familiar with, and I'm sure there's many others, they're pretty much the same situation where you're going to have a mix of public and private land. And I guess I apologize if I'm missing something, but I just don't see that this particular project is that different, and I'm against tabling, and in fact, I'd be for voting to approve the project.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion on the floor, and so I call for the question on the motion and I think that will give us an idea where we stand on the whole situation.
There's a motion on the floor to table this. Do I hear a second?
You already got it.
That was me.
Yourself.
Where did I get?
I seconded.
Oh, you seconded. Any additional discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I hear 3 ayes, I believe. Let's do a hand count here to make sure we're right. One down here, and 3, 4. Hand count for nay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Guess I vote, I guess.
You're the tiebreaker.
Okay, my hand's up. So anyway, that's where we're at with the vote. Thank you very much. And
What did we do?
well, what we did,
Motion
we're
failed.
tabling
We tabled it
until January, and
No, motion failed.
voted not to table, yeah.
You want to call that question again to make sure you're correct?
No, it's right.
Okay.
So we elected not to table, so therefore we will,
Well, then I move we approve it.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion then that, as I understand, the vote to table it was defeated, that we just consider this request as we normally would with the block of request.
now I'll have a vote on the issue. Or
Mr.
We have
there
one
needs
more
to be a
left.
second.
We have one more left.
Oh, one more, okay.
He was just
Yeah, that's
suggesting we
right.
consider it in the
That's
block
right.
like
We got one more in the block. Back to you,
Thank you.
Director.
Mr. Chairman, the last project in this block is under tab T2. It is the Sidon Irrigation District Sidon Canal Project. The request for this project is a materials-only grant in the amount of $1 million, $1,060,000. The total project cost is $1,753,857. This project is to replace some of the laterals within the system to pipe, to prevent conveyance losses, reduce maintenance, and improve water control within the system.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Willie Bridges with Prior Mountain Engineering representing Sidon Irrigation today. The district wanted me to express their appreciation for your support in their projects in the past, and I am here to answer any questions you might have today.
Does the commission have any questions for our sponsor today? Looks like this is material only, right?
Mr. Chairman, I would move this on Bighorn, in Bighorn County on the Sidon Canal.
Well, we're going to do these as a block, so we will just, if there's no other questions.
Mr. Chair, if I might, my
Yes.
intent would be to make a motion to approve everything but Savory Little Snake. We can't, if we approve at a block, that means director's recommendation, which is no. So
Okay.
I am going to make the motion to approve the rehabilitation program Level 2, or Account 2, Level 3 projects, with the exception, I would like to withdraw from that motion the Savory, Little Snake River, Savory Creek diversion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, before you get a second, I'd like to ask if we could also remove the Enterprise Watershed Improvement District canal lining projects. I need to declare a conflict of interest on that particular project and recuse myself from that vote.
Yes, that's approved.
It's fine with the motion here.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
I will second the motion. Before you go ahead. Go ahead, Kellen.
I also need to declare a
Oh.
conflict of interest on Dry Creek, so maybe we need to vote on these separately.
Okay, we'll do Dry Creek, but we still have 7 here, so we'll do 2 of the extra votes on a separate basis.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
may I ask a question? We've got 2 projects that the recommendation was do not fund unless the Buffalo bill. So by approving those, does that imply that if the legislature approves the transfer, that those would be funded?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it will, because I think they were addressed earlier in the day that they were part of our funding package. And didn't we do a motion on the $7 million already if we had sufficient funding, or if the funding went through to fund them?
That is correct, but that's still contingent on legislature approval.
Yes, and that can be still addressed in that package. If you want to read them off, when you do that, you can make that part of your recommendation, okay?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've already vented those to the point that they can be in the block.
Okay.
It was very clear in your presentation and in the minutes that that had to be a consideration in our approval of those projects. And I think we saw that clearly, and we will make this motion in accordance with your presentation and recommendations as verbalized today.
Thank you.
With that said, we are ready if your recommendation is read?
No,
We got it? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the motion was to approve the block with the then we have since withdrawn Dry Creek, Enterprise, and Savory for separate consideration.
Right. Was there a second?
Yes, I second.
You did. So Commissioner Purcell made the motion. Sheridan Little made the second, so we are now ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So now we have the individual ones to vote on, where we have conflict of interest. Generally speaking, we would request that they leave the room, but I don't think we have in the past. have
I
we?
think you just go out to the audience and sit down as the policy.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to see, if you would.
So you do Enterprise first? and I'll do-
We'll start with it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do
Mr.
Enterprise.
Chairman, I will move that we accept the director's recommendation on Enterprise
Second.
canal lining.
Moved by Commissioner Little, second by Commissioner Wagner to accept this motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We'll have one more motion, Dry Creek, and we'll wait until our presence is in the crowd.
Mr. Chairman, I will go ahead and move that we accept the director's recommendation on the Dry Creek Irrigation District Transmission Pipeline Replacement Project.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Little, seconded by Commissioner Purcell to accept this project. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So, the next item,
Mr. Chairman, you still have one outstanding vote.
Avery Creek, so we'll vote on it.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the Savory Little Snake River Water Conservancy District Savory Creek diversion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second that.
Been moved by Mr. Yoder to, made the motion. Who made the second?
Scott.
You did it. All right, thank you.
Got a motion in there, or second.
So with that said, we will vote on that particular
Chairman.
project at this time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just as a quick question for clarification, I
Okay.
believe the director's recommendation had been to do not fund, but I believe the motion was to fund, which would be, okay, and so it's not adopting the recommendation, it's to fund the project. Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure that was clear on the record.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? A little discussion before the vote. I'm going to vote aye on this today, but I also understand that you as a staff and everything else, I think we're setting the precedent today, and I want to make it very clear that the precedent I think we are in fact setting is that if a public entity, a district, is benefiting from the project, then it is fundable by the Water Development Program, because this is going to come up time and time again in lieu of the 2017 opinion. And so we may be paving our future with this. So I was a little more comfortable with tabling it because of the precedent we're setting. And if any of my fellow members are concerned about that, I think they should bring that to their vote. And with that, I'll shut up.
Any other discussion by any of our members before we cast a ballot?
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, going into the future, the way I view this, and I could be wrong, but the way I view this, when these types of applications come in, that we would like to flag them and bring them before you for further discussion on a case-by-case basis, rather than just saying blanketly that we're stating and setting a precedence, but that we would bring each particular event and analyze it on a case-by-case basis.
Prior to any study or recommendation?
I'm talking more in the light of the public-private interest.
You feel, and it was, I guess it was stopped there, but whenever, because you did not recommend the funding for it, so what would you concur different? Is coming through us before the application is even made out? Is that what you're saying?
If it's a similar situation to this, that we would likely have the same recommendation of do not fund, with the intent that it's a case-by-case analysis, that the information, to provide the sponsor the opportunity to provide you the information to make a decision that as Andrew said, that the private interest doesn't grossly outweigh the public interest on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
So we have one opposed, 5, 6, 7, all the rest of us are ayes. Okay? You got that, Katie? Thank you. All right. Next item of business, I'll turn it back over to our director.
Mr. Chairman, the next block, I assume we want to continue with the blocks, will be the Level 3 project amendments. First project under tab U2 is the Wheatland Irrigation District Tunnel Rehabilitation 2019. This request is for construction funding. I believe it was last year that we funded the design-only portion of this project for the rehabilitation of the district's tunnel dam. The original budget was $388,000. The proposed budget increase is $5,150,000, and that is for the construction of the project. If you'd like to say anything, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name's Lee Arrington. I'm the manager of Wheatland Irrigation District, and in light of time savings, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Purcell. To the table.
What is your plan? Are you putting a sleeve in? How are we going about this?
Mr. Chairman, this is the rehabilitation of the tunnel dam diversion. It's our diversion structure that's over 100 years old.
Thank you.
I was just looking at how many users you have here. Do you have that off the top of your head? Land 850, is that correct?
That would be approximate, yes, sir.
You're a pretty large district.
Serves 54,000 irrigated acres. And this is a public benefit.
Got that in? Okay, is there any other questions for our sponsor today?
Mr. Chairman, I would move
We'll do it as a block again.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good luck with it. Looks like you got a major project in front of you. That's sizable.
Mr. Chairman, the next project under tab V2 is the small water program. The recommendation is to increase the budget by $500,000. This is based on, if you would look at paragraph 3, this is based on the estimate using the 2019 as application to develop the total anticipated budget needs of $684,323. We have presently available $186,489, hence the request for $500,000.
We have a sponsor. We don't have to sponsor for the small project.
For the sponsor
We are.
for that.
Okay, well, is there any questions or comments by the commission? Let's get some money. It's about our turn, isn't it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if you'd indulge me a little bit, I've got a question, if it can be answered fairly quickly. It's come from constituents that I have. Watershed studies in my region have been done, and they, the studies were being done, projected projects that people might have wanted done, like windmills or wells, is probably the primary question they've asked. They're in the watershed study. How do they then get into the small water project? Do they go through the?
I'll bring the smart guy up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, yes. I think you remember that a couple years ago, we removed the requirement that they be in the watershed study. But that having been said, if it's listed in the watershed study and it's something that the producer or whatever would like to go forward with, they work with their local conservation district or public entity and bring that to us. Application would be January 1st deadline.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Further questions? If
Mr.
that,
Chairman.
we'll proceed. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next project under tab W2 is the Sponsors Contingency Fund for Account 2. The recommendation is to increase, the requested funding under this recommendation is for $1 million for this contingency account. We currently have a balance of $1,058,339.54. With the projects that we anticipate, the complexity of some of the projects that we're going to construction on, as well as requests that have either come in or we are anticipating, there's the potential to deplete the current budget, so we're requesting $1 million budget for this contingency account to move forward.
Any questions? Larry, Senator Hicks?
Question of the director, could you provide a little more detail on that, what you're anticipating? Are we starting to see, because historically it's been conservation districts, are we starting to see some irrigation districts or watershed improvement districts applying for these small water projects too? Is that where you're anticipating some of the growth in the program? This wasn't for small water.
You guys get your mics. Can we hear your mics down there? Get your mics down so we can hear.
Earth to Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to make fun of you now or later? It's basically, this is the construction funding contingency that when we get in trouble, we can, with the approval of the commission, they can dip into it. Thank you for not making fun of me, not knowing that it was a spillway, a diversion dam rather than a tunnel. I think we're even for the day.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just share a quick observation that making fun of myself and to a lesser extent the distinguished commissioner that's the at-large member is pretty low-hanging fruit to make fun of.
Mr. Chairman, I think Senator Hicks, this is similar to the recommendation yesterday of the
Contingency.
Account 1 contingency. This is for Account 2 contingencies.
Any other questions on our contingency?
Mr. Chairman, just so I'm clear, then, is this temporary or is it removed from account 3? Or I'm trying to figure out, we're taking money from one account to another, correct? No, we're not. I don't understand it then.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about the contingency fund, correct? Okay. So we're just simply obligating account 2 money to that fund so we have the flexibility if a construction project comes in over bid, we can handle it.
Did I answer your question, Representative Hicklin? Thank you. Okay. Back to you.
Mr. Chairman, that is the end of that block, last project in that block.
Okay. Yes, Larry
A
Hicks.
question would probably be for Jason. Do we have a contingency fund for account 3 or on those storage projects? Mr. Chairman, and just a suggestion that maybe the commission could work with the office between now and our January meeting, just being cognizant of where we are budgetary-wise with the state of Wyoming. There's always somebody eyeing account number 3. And so it may be something that you would want to take into consideration as to appropriate some of that money out of account 3 into a contingency fund.
Certainly could do that if we get our loan back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this will stop a further loan. This is a brilliant move.
Yeah. And we'll work towards that.
Mr. Chairman, so then I can assume we can put the outstanding unappropriated balance in this contingency fund?
Mr. Chairman, I think Commissioner Purcell is right on target on that.
Mr. Chairman, there would be a justification for it too, because we saw the increases that were made in that account just yesterday. So anyway, it's very justifiable, I think. We're not just trying to shield our money.
We are.
Senator Geis?
I would move those last ones that we just approved.
I second it.
Moved by Commissioner Geis, seconded by Commissioner Lancaster. So is there any other question before we go into the vote on this one? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Now we're down to the last three.
Chairman, the next project is tab XYZ2. I would remind you that this was part of the consultant selection group. The consultant has been selected for this project, the Highland Hanover Irrigation District Pump Station. This is a level 2 study to optimize the plans to rehab the Hanover Irrigation District Pump Station number 2. The proposed budget is $75,000.
I'm Bill Hahn from the Highland Hanover Irrigation District, and I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on our behalf.
This is the
Senator
pump
Geis.
stations that, this was a federal project put in 1950, 52 or 3.
They've been-
It was started to increase more land to be brought in, and that's, the pumps, you can't buy them anymore, from what they tell me, are the repairs, and so they need to go in there and look at, get some new different pumps, and that's what it amounts to.
Yes. There's they've been running since '56. No, and just the rebuilt impeller for those pumps is, I think, $93,000. There's 2 of them, and doesn't replace anything. I think they run on 2,600 volts. There's 2 600 horsepower pumps.
Get a shot out of that.
Yeah, and there's 7,000 acres in the district, and over 80% of the acres are under under this pump station. There's some small pumps for another canal right out of that same station, a small part of this system, but
You know the manufacturer of the pumps, are they still in business or not?
oh,
Or do
I
you
don't
know
know. These were from the gosh, I
Corps
can't
of
remember.
Engineers.
Yeah, they were I think they were, man, they might be GE, but, I mean, even just the panels to operate these you can't hardly find an electrician that can help you.
Well, I think the efficiency of the new pumps will be a lot lesser in electricity usage too.
Yes.
There's new technology, I'm sure, on volts and amps that has
Yes.
happened since whatever. But, okay, any other questions on this particular project? Any concerns? If not, thank you, Bill.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
Chairman, I'm going to declare a conflict on the next project and have Jason present it to you.
Mr. Chairman, the next project's under tab A3, Laparelle Irrigation District Rehab. This is a conversation we've been having for the past 2 days with Chase and Colt here from the district,
Why he's losing his hair? Real nice.
as well as the consultants. So you approved the, amendment yesterday to replace or set aside some of the existing scope for the rockfall analysis and to insert scope for the structural analysis of the dam. And this recommendation is simply, between now and the January meeting, we'll work with everybody involved and figure out what it's going to take to backfill that funding, as well as if we get enough information from the structural analysis that gives us a better roadmap of what needs to be done into the future, we'll include that in that funding request in January as well.
So with that, you said you're anticipating additional funding for this project at the time the determination's made, is that correct?
That's correct. We just need a little bit more time to determine what
To
that's
determine
going to be
that.
between now and January.
So is this a extension of time, or is it just an approval of the project based on the element?
Mr. Chairman, it's just an approval in concept that you're for that, and then if we'll have to amend that additional dollars into their contract probably next March. And at that time, if we feel like there needs to be an extension of time, we can extend their contract for time at that point. So it's just dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yesterday we deferred contract money from original scope to the new worries about the dam. And this would basically take the information you're going to learn, plus probably add back the old scope on the hanging rock, and all that. So we will have a total package, and you will have us an amount in draft legislation, so we can work from there. Is that the plan?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. And if there's anything further from their structural analysis, I think that's scheduled for here in December, that we can learn, that would then potentially add to getting a little further down on the road on helping us determine how we're going to fix this issue, then we'll talk about that as well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Any other questions by the commission for Colt?
Hope we don't have an earthquake.
Mr. Chairman,
Any comments you'd like to make?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say thank you for your consideration and all your help in all our previous matters that we've had. I just want to say thank you all to all you commissioners and everybody.
Certainly will take and title that. Thank you, or receive the same. Good luck with it.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's the end of that block, unless you want to just continue on and knock this last one out. Entirely up to you.
We probably should, these are kind of different projects, aren't they? So
They're still level one studies.
still level ones.
They're studies.
Let's continue then.
Under tab B3, again, this went through the consultant selection. The consultant has been selected. This is for the Owl Creek Irrigation District Lucerne Master Plan. Master plan for the irrigation district with a proposed budget of $170,000.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jean Skelton. I'm with the Owl Creek Irrigation District. This project is very much like the Highland Hanover project. They're just a year or two ahead of us. And these pumps at our pump station were built in the 50s and are aging. If they were to collapse, we have about 4,400 acres. If that were to break down, the Lucerne Valley would not be irrigated until they were up and running. So it's pretty imperative that we get it done, and so that's where we're at. I'll take any of your questions. And thank you guys. Everybody's been so good at thanking you. Thank you guys for considering it. We really do appreciate it. So, and any questions, I'll take them.
I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
Ian Skelton.
Jean? Thank you. Is there any questions by the commission for Jean or our sponsor? I know where there's a lot of pumps. Got a whole bunch of them up at Lake D. Smith that might run good.
Just transfer them over?
Yeah, you can have them probably.
Yeah.
I think so. We might even pay you to take them out. I'm just kidding, but anyway, yeah, there are pumps over there. Any concerns, questions?
I make a motion to approve the Owl Creek Irrigation District Lucerne Master Plan.
You want to include the two other ones too?
Motion made by
these ones up here?
Commissioner Glick, seconded by Commissioner Geis.
Mr. Chairman, would you accept an amendment to your motion to also approve Highland, Hanover, and LaPrelle? And we'll do it all in one motion. Would that be okay?
Second that.
Okay, motions are made, you got it, Kathy? So we will just make one vote and get her done here. All those in favor of these three projects signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay.
Say your thank yous, let's get that.
Is that the completion of all of our projects?
That is the project list. Thank you.
I want to say thank everybody for coming. I know you're a long ways from home. We got finished on our due time, I think. We finished before noon. That was our anticipated time. Anyway, safe travels.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did you want to announce the meeting schedule, future
The
meeting?
schedule for next,
It's in the white thing.
where is it?
The white book, the last.
The white book?
I've got it right here if you'd like me to.
Yeah, go ahead and announce that if you would, please.
Sure. The next meeting is January 8th and 9th. It's a Wednesday and Thursday at the WWDC workshop meeting. Final funding recommendations and review draft bills in Cheyenne. And then January 10th is Select Water Committee in Cheyenne.
At your office, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure, why not?
Why not?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Rod, second.
I moved by Commissioner Little, seconded by Commissioner Geis, and we adjourn and go home safely. Thank you.
I might as well carry it rather than